Hey, what's up, good people? Welcome to another episode of Pole. Yep, I'm wearing the same t-shirt and it's the same setup as the previous video because I recorded both videos back to back. This video is all about the Purple Terminator that I purchased, and it's just going to be purely story time. So if you guys are not interested in listening to my story time, and if you're here looking for an installation guide or a review video of the Worker Terminator, well, I gotta say that this is not going to be a tutorial, so you could just skip this video altogether. But if you're looking for a review, then maybe story time might give you a little bit more insight into the product. You know, I'm just saying maybe, you know? But if you're here for the story, well then buckle up. So those of you who are active on the Nerf subreddit might have seen that I posted about this Purple Terminator there, and basically this video is a video version of everything that I wrote there with a little bit of updates. But feel free to skip out on this if you've read that already because it's basically the same thing. So this is my Purple Terminator, guys. I know you can't really see it because of the dark lighting, but I'll try and show it to you like that. Like, see, it's purple. It's a really beautiful purple, I have to say. Like, honestly speaking, it is a very, very visually pleasing blaster, right? So I did take some B-rolls to add into this video to kind of spice things up. So those will be shown on screen at the right time. But let's talk about this. Now, the Terminator was released as Worker's version of the long shot, basically a long shot reshell, I must say, right? I didn't get that. I didn't purchase the original Terminator because I was thinking, you know, it's kind of long, kind of large. It's a lot longer than a standard long shot, so I passed on that. But some others in the community actually purchased theirs, and let's just say that the reviews weren't very... So there were a lot of complaints about it, and so people were like, yeah, let's just stay away from the Terminator. But earlier this year, Worker kind of showed some pictures of multicolored clear Terminators, and I was like, wow, this looks so cool. And apparently it was Worker offering some kind of a color tinting service where they could tint Terminator shells into various colors. And I was like, yeah, I wanted to get pink, but at the same time I wanted to get purple. So I decided I'm gonna get purple. Right, so the moment it was released and available on the market, I reached out to Enoch, my buddy Enoch. Thank you for helping me procure this. And I said I also need a set of the Terminator internals because I know that they were offering just a shell, but I didn't want to get just a shell with none of the internals because, you know, it's a different shotgun pump system altogether. So I said, you know what, just put me down for all of that. And I paid a total of about, I think, 300 Singapore dollars all in all, including shipping. So it was a shell, the full set of internals. And yeah, there's a reason for these indexing clips up here, but yeah, it's not just aesthetics in this case, but yeah, I put it there because it looked kind of cool as well, right? Just to kind of accent the Picatinny rail. If not, the whole blaster would be just basically one whole standard color. So I bought this with the idea of actually having a different breach system in there. I actually got a pair of Easy BB or Easy Brass breach systems. Those were actually designed by Flechette over at Monochrome Industries, and another local nerfer named Duncan actually helped me print those and actually got those made. So yeah, thank you Duncan for helping me out. I had to make some minor adjustments in order for them to fit the blasters I wanted to, and so I've upgraded my red long shot that you guys saw in the previous video with the new Easy BB system. And I love that system because it is basically the upgraded version of what Drixel actually designed for me in the past, that lipless breach system. But one of the reasons why I wanted this shell also was so that I could have that system in here. So I thought, you know, it's going to be rather straightforward since this is actually based off the long shot itself. Now I could just simply... I was completely wrong. There was nothing simple about it. So I got this in the mail and I was like, okay, I'm going to try to work this out, right? So it came in a large box and the two halves of the shell were actually kind of held together with a few screws at key points. So the first thing you had to do was remove all the screws so you could open up the blaster, right? And the moment I did that, I found out that the first screw was just kind of free spinning in its slot, and it's this screw pod right here on the top of the Picatinny rail is the first one. So I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe some kind of a tolerance issue. Open up the shell and I realized that that screw pod had actually broke. Now I didn't break it for sure because it was already free spinning. So yeah, that was the first feedback I gave to Enoch to show the Worker. So that was step one of me finding out that this shell is still as brittle as shit. Now people had already said that the original Terminator shell was brittle, and I thought that this might have been an upgrade, but I forgot the fact that it was announced that these were actually custom tinted, so it was going to be the same shell using the same plastic. I don't know what plastic this is, but it is really, really brittle. Now when you start installing your screws in, make sure you take extra precaution because you'll actually hear the plastic cracking. So basically, if you bought the Terminator and you purchased Terminator internals to fit in here, I think that's going to work perfectly fine. The first thing I had to do was actually remove the lip of the plunger tube so that I could fit the Easy BB pusher in there, right? So that was done with not much of an issue. I also had a spare metal plunger rod that I wanted to use in the system, so I actually got all of that together. And then the first problem that I found out was that the Easy BB wasn't going to fit the bolt sled very well. You actually had to cut a small bit of the notch away in order for it to fit the Worker metal bolt sled. So I mean, that's something that is really just based on tolerances, and it's a no-brainer to do. So I did that, and then I got the bolt sled on. But then I realized my first major issue was that the Easy BB would not fit the Terminator dart gate. So I thought I could kind of grind away at the dart gate. Now this dart gate was made of aluminum and it was nicely coated. I took my Dremel and I spent an entire night trying to make it fit. I just tried to grind it down and then I gave up. I just completely gave up, and I reached out in a local Nerfers chat group and I said, does anyone have a spare stock long shot dart gate? Could I please have it from you? And then the buddy Winston, thank you so much Winston. You guys are familiar with Winston, but yes, Winston actually gave me a spare dart gate that he had. So thank you Winston. If not for you, I wouldn't be able to do this, right? So the dart gate unfortunately did not fit into this shell, and you would think that it would because it's supposed to be a long shot shell, right? But no, it wasn't gonna fit, so I had to cut it. Basically, I had to do some mods to the dart gate just so that it could fit the barrel and the breech, and on top of that, sit inside here very well. So now, did that, right? And I got everything to fit nicely, right? I'm cutting out bits and bits of frustration here, so I'm just trying to make this as short as possible. So I managed to get everything to fit: the barrel, the dart gate, the breech, the plunger tube, the catch plate, the trigger. Everything was looking good. The next thing I had to do was to make sure that the shotgun pump was going to work. Then I found out that if I'm using the Easy BB, I cannot use the shotgun pump connector piece the way it is. I had to change the orientation because initially there was a plastic wall on the back, and I don't know why it's on the back. It should be on the front because of the way you apply pressure to it. So Worker, that's something for you to look into. But I had to flip it over. I flipped it around. So I flipped it around and I was like, yes, it looks like it's gonna work. Put it back all in place, and then I realized, wait, because I flipped it to the front, it is now touching the dart gate again, and it's preventing the bolt sled from fully moving all the way forward to effectively close the breech. So I was like, okay, I have to shave away more of the dart gate. So I did that, and I looked at it again and I was like, okay, look, everything should be fine, right? It should be fine. So I closed the blaster up and then I was like, okay, it looks like everything is gonna be good. I started to prime it, and then it started to scratch right here at this part. And I was like, this is so scratchy, what's causing that scratch? And I realized, yeah, well, the 4 screws on top of that shotgun pump area were protruding out. And they were scratching. And it's gonna keep scratching the shell. And that's something I really hate. But I told myself, you know what, just try to prime it all the way and see if this thing is able to fire in the first place. So I primed it, and the catch plate was working fine. So I put a mag in, closed the breech, and I pulled the trigger. And it didn't fire. Instead, I heard a crack. And I was like, what is going on now? And what happened was that post that would go in the middle of your trigger completely broke off. And I was like, why would this happen? Why would this happen? After that, I just kept pulling the trigger and I realized, oh my goodness, the catch plate wasn't working so well with the plunger rod. Because it wasn't the Worker plunger rod, it was the metal plunger rod. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to open up the blaster again. The problem was that it was stuck in the fully primed position. Now we're talking about a brass breech system here, so there was a huge frustration and a really big point of worry for me. I could easily screw this entire thing up. Brass breeches could warp easily, and now we're talking about, like, I don't know how strong the spring is. I think it's like 15 kilograms or 18 kilograms. This is really scary at this point of time. So I've never done this before. I've never actually encountered a situation like this before. So what I did was I put a dart into the breech. I pulled out the mag. I kept it in the closed position. I undid all these screws here all the way up till here. Then I got myself a long screwdriver, shoved it in the bottom, and then I pushed up onto the catch plate, and then thank God it fired. It didn't cause any warpage or any other kind of damage to the system or the blaster as a whole, but it fired. And I'm like, okay, look, I got lucky this time. I really hope I don't screw up anymore. Let me rephrase that. I really hope this shell doesn't screw me up anymore. And then opening up the blaster again, guess what? The second screw port on the top rail broke on me. So now this blaster has 3 broken screw ports. yeah, it's all a learning experience, right? So I opened it up and I did my tweaks. I changed out the plunger rod into the original Worker plunger rod that came with the Terminator set of internals. And then I don't have this screw post anymore. But what I did was I actually tried to change out the 4 screws on top of the shotgun pump area in order to reduce that scratching. So I looked high and low for some other screws that might fit, but I couldn't find any. But with everything kind of undone, I actually realized that there were slots for the screw heads to actually sit in. So I was thinking maybe I'm supposed to tighten it even more so that the screw heads would actually slip into those recessed slots. But by doing so, I actually ripped the threads in there. So I was like, oh my god, one problem after another. I ripped the first thread and I was like, I'm not gonna let this happen to the other 3 screws. And I don't even know why Worker is doing that. Why would you provide screws with screw heads that are larger than the recessed area that you actually... You know what? Never mind. So for some kind of additional safety, I actually put some goop into the screw pot that had the ripped threads and installed that screw back in, and then proceeded to install the other 3 screws back in. So now this thing still scratches. You guys can actually hear it. I know you can't really see it because it's really dark, but hear that? Let me just prime the blaster and then I'll... So it's primed now. Listen to that scratch. That is obnoxious and it shouldn't happen at all. But yeah, that is something that I'm living with now. Like, apparently, I'm not the only one. Every other Worker Terminator owner has to live with that thing. Yeah, but I mean, like right now I have an easy BB in this thing and it looks really good. So aesthetically wise, it is awesome. Just to show you guys the dart compatibility, because an easy BB system allows you to fire off both full length and half length darts. So I have one dart in a full length mag and I'll just show it to you guys that this actually works. There we go. Full length dart with no problem. And then a half length dart. And then a half length dart. Not half length. Half length dart. Sorry guys, it's late at night. But yeah, here we go. A Worker Talon mag. Fires off darts with no problem. By the way, I didn't mention to you guys, this here is actually a clear Worker foregrip that I tried my very best to rid dye to match this purple, but I failed. This is really resistant to any kind of dye, but well, it's still purple, so not so bad. But this right here, this is a really interesting one. This is a Worker, I think it was part of the AK furniture that they had. I don't even know how I had it, but I had this spare lying around and this was actually in there. I don't even know how come. So I actually have one of these and this is like super clear. It's not frosted in any way, super clear. So I actually dyed it with the same kind of solution as what I dyed this with. And it turned out to be a pretty cool grape or wineish kind of color. And I like it. So it is still kind of purple, but there are 3 shades of purple here right now. But yeah, I could just easily take this off. And I wanted to tell you guys that with this barrel system set up like that, I have the brass breech going all the way to 17th 32nds brass here, and then I actually have a scar barrel here, and this scar barrel is actually salvaged from the red long shot because now it's using a different scar barrel, but I could just easily remove this. It's friction fit, so I just gotta stick my pinky in, apply some friction and some pressure, and I could just kind of pop this guy right out. So it is a scar barrel, guys. It's a traditional original style scar barrel that is made of a wider kind of brass, and it is centered with some beautiful E-tape that goes in there like that, and I've calibrated it in such a way that it is going to be perfectly touching just the end of the barrel once I have it flush like that. And so in order for me to protect that, I actually put this on, but yeah, I'll just leave it off right now. So I've got this whole Terminator in the setup that I want. Of course, I had to go through a lot of struggles, and now that brings me full circle to what I mentioned at the start of the video about having these indexing clips here. These indexing clips not only look cool and add an accent of color to the blaster, but it also helps to hold the blaster together at the rail area because it's already missing 2 screw ports right now. That is my story, everyone. That is the end of story time and kind of quote-unquote rant time. And for those of you who were in this because you wanted to hear some kind of a review, well, hopefully my story gives you a little bit more insight into the experiences that you might go through as well if you are looking to purchase for yourself a Worker Terminator. And now here are some additional updates that I did not share in the Reddit post, and that is I actually told Worker and gave them some advice into how to get a more even tint on your transparent shells. Now I gotta say that the purple is a really beautiful, vibrant, very vivid hue of purple, and I really love it. But if you look closely at it, especially when you have it opened up, you can actually see that it is not an even shade of purple. Like the dye job, the tinting job wasn't done very well, and you could see like there are some like discolorations here and there. And that unevenness, in my opinion, from my experience, because I've actually dyed quite a lot of things before, is because this original shell wasn't cleaned properly. Now, I don't know how Worker stores their Terminator shells, but the original shell, I'm guessing that there are some residue or residual mold release lubricant that is still present on the shell when they actually store it. So before they actually go through the dyeing or the tinting process, they should clean it. The cleaner it is, the more even your color is going to be. So that's one thing that I wanted to point out, the fact that the color isn't as even as it looks like when you look at it close up. And I actually gave Worker this exact feedback. Now the next thing is that because I purchased it through Enoch did share with me that Worker said that they would be sending me a replacement shell because I've got more than 2 broken screw pots. But I did tell them, don't waste their money, don't waste their time. It's still a brittle thing and it's not going to fix this issue here. I mean, I don't know if they will actually still send me that shell, even though I said they didn't have to. But you know, that gesture itself, I guess, speaks of the improving customer service, because I know that a lot of people have actually struggled with their customer service before, but I think that that gesture actually means a lot. So it says quite a lot about them. And yeah, so not all is lost, but I gotta say that I got an awesome looking shell and I got an awesome looking blaster, albeit not a very comfortable one. Some points for other people to take note of: this part of the stock is actually quite uncomfortable because the ridges here are actually a little bit sharp and they bite into your skin or your shoulder. And this grip here is pretty uncomfortable because it's quite angular, unless you have some of those blaster grip sleeves, and you can consider having that, but this is actually quite uncomfortable. The grip, well, you could put any grip that you want, so that's fine. But the biggest point of contempt that I have is the scratching part over here at the shotgun pump area. But all in all, you know, it's really just aesthetics over anything else. But right now I've got a pretty sweet performing blaster because of the Easy BB. And that is it. So thank you for sticking through my story time, and I hope that you found it enjoyable, I guess. Well, yeah, it was pretty, let's just say it was pretty emotionally charged. But yeah, you know, everyone loves a good story, right? So yeah, this is a good story, something that I will always remember for the rest of my life, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. So this is my story of my purple Worker Terminator. I will catch y'all in the next video, whenever that is. Until then, everyone, drills pay the bills and teamwork makes the dream work. Peace.